Hello, I'm Doug Musio. This is City Talk. The postmortems of the 2005 city elections are in. We begin the 2006 political premortems here. Will the Republicans succeed in committing suicide? Will the death penalty arise like Lazarus? Will the Democrats run the table? And is George Pataki a lame duck or a dead duck? The list of protagonists and policy issues is long. Bruno, Silva, Pirro, Weld, Spitzer, Suozzi, Green, and Cuomo. Medicaid, school finance, MTA, and Ground Zero. To kibitz and kvetch about all this and whatever else he feels like talking about is Bob Liff, Senior Vice President at George Arts Communication, colleague at CUNY TV, former reporter at the Daily News and Newsday, and just one of those wise guys. Welcome, Bob.
I would prefer to be a wise man, but that's okay.
Well, wise
right.
guy's good enough
Okay.
for you. Don't push it. What's with the Republicans? I mean, the headlines, Tuesday's Times, Republican leaders tell Pirro to end Senate bid, and in effect, she gives them an obscene Brooklyn hand gesture in return. What's going on?
Well, as a Democrat, I can see that, they always say the Democrats have to learn something from the Republican success. I think Republicans have learned one of the basic things that Democrats have been doing, which is to line up a firing squad in a circle. So, I mean, they are, this is one of those stories. As a Democrat, I say stay the hell out of the way, because they're doing a lot better job on themselves than Democrats could ever do.
This
they
is
are
Saturday Night Live
what
stuff.
they have. You see it, and you see it to some degree in this city, where you have a mayor that's a Republican in name only, I would argue. There is no bench in the city. George Pataki has left no heir. There's a very weak bench. They're looking to a former Massachusetts governor to run, John Faso, who's a very credible guy with state political credentials, is getting shunted aside. They've turned to Jeanine Pirro. First she was going to run for governor. Now she's going to run for Senate. Now they're trying to push her into running for AG. She's very bravely standing out there saying, well, it shows that they like me to run for statewide office. But that's a wonderful answer on her part. Doesn't have anything to do with reality, but it's a wonderful answer.
Right. I mean, it was a total non sequitur to what happened. October 46 of the 62 New York State county chairs, then George Pataki, then Steve Minaric, all come out for Pirro, push her into it. She stumbles, falls a couple of times, and now they want to hang her. What is it?
Well, there's multiple motivations going on here. I mean, one is you have Hillary Clinton, who's emerging as the kind of the behemoth, the political behemoth of this state.
Can she be beat?
I don't know that she can be beaten next year. The question that they're thinking about is, can she be beaten in 2008 when she presumably is going to be running for president?
And that's presumably. Do you buy it? I mean,
I'm totally agnostic on whether she's going to run for president. I
mean, but big 2006 win will give her a slingshot momentum toward 2008.
Well, I mean, New York, we're not exactly emblematic of the entire country.
No,
we are about as blue of a blue state as you can get. So
getting bluer, we'll talk about that.
And getting bluer as time goes on. But you do have, the degree to which the national Republicans count on state organizations to kind of carry their water and lead their fight. I think the Republican Party, at least at this point, is failing miserably.
Okay. Let's say Pirro takes a walk from the Senate race. Who do the Republicans have? You talked about a weak bench. I mean, it's not even AAA. It's like AA or the New York Penn League.
Well, we have Nixon's son-in-law. And we have Attorney Edward Cox, who's apparently a pretty credible guy,
smart, committed guy, but
showed an ability to raise some money before Pirro came in.
I would say naive
aside.
And
I don't know the man, so
yeah.
I don't know if he's naive or not. All I know is,
but smart
I know
and
his
thoughtful and committed.
right. But I mean,
he comes back. I mean, they pushed him out to get Pirro in. He's going to come back. What does he look like?
I think he looks like a guy who's willing to fall on the sword. I mean, the argument that Pirro never thought that she was going to win this race, but the degree to which she has established as Westchester District Attorney some national presence as a TV commentator on various and sundry crimes around the country, that she raises her profile and she could personally benefit with a very healthy TV career after she loses. She did not run for re-election this year, I think, because she has all kinds of skeletons that were bedeviling her, having to do with her husband, having to do with the way she handled a particular homicide case that happened next, on her block. She had a lot of reasons that she did not run, besides wanting to look to run statewide, I believe. So,
but wouldn't that hurt her statewide? I mean, come on, you're running against Hillary Clinton, and it's not going to be a huge albatross around, several albatrosses. And given the fact that her husband Albert is the chief albatross,
I think that this race is going to be about Hillary Clinton,
right?
And so the idea is going to be: are you for Hillary Clinton? Are you against Hillary Clinton? And provided you can get a credible candidate to stand against her, that somebody could see as a senator, that's what you want. It's the same thing in the 2001 mayoral race. As the Democrats imploded, as Mark Green and Freddie Ferrer tore each other apart, Mike Bloomberg spending $75 million, but still Mike Bloomberg was a credible alternative. So you could vote for Mike Bloomberg and not think, that you were going to get. There have been some pretty loony Republican nominees for mayor,
but it was still a crapshoot.
But he had established himself as a credible alternative, because the election became yes, Mark Green, no Mark Green, and I think that Hillary is the kind of dominant figure on the political stage that you're going to be for Hillary or you're going to be against Hillary, and so you need somebody credible to stand against it, to say, well, if I don't like Hillary, I feel okay voting for this person. I don't think the Republicans have exactly showered themselves with glory in trying, at least at this point. Remember, we're only in December.
I understand that. And a month is an eternity in politics, let alone 9 months. Governor, though, you've got Weld, you've got Golisano, and in a sense, they're almost proxies in a fight between Pataki and Bruno. I mean, my question earlier is Pataki a lame duck, a dead duck?
Well,
what's going on?
Pataki is, to me, I mean, I know the governor. I covered him in 1994 in that race. I also covered Golisano, and I will tell you, if you have to choose one race to cover, if you have to fly into Horsehead, do it in a Lear. I mean, I knew that Golisano wasn't going to win, but you got on
a little self-interest.
You got on his private. You got on his private jet. There was a bowl of fruit. I mean, it was really nice.
Really nice.
But that's a separate point, because reporters are not used to creature comforts. But Pataki from 1994 to 2000 was essentially they essentially had a stranglehold on this state. They had Bill Powers running the Republican Party. You had Al D'Amato holding down the fort in Washington. You had an extremely powerful and organized political force in this state.
And you had Vacco winning in '94.
Vacco was a phenomenon. Vacco was a fluke.
I understand that, but he was there.
He was there, and I still think the Republicans, if they even Pirro, would have a good shot at Attorney General, because I think both Cuomo and Green carry a lot of baggage into this race, whichever emerges.
How does Pirro step down with all the circus, and given the fact, as we talked about earlier, there were all these things rattling around in the closet? Well, potentially they're rattling around.
I'll go back to my 9th grade social studies teacher, Murray Kunkus, at Junior High School 166 in East New York.
Go ahead.
Who taught me 2 things. He took us to Alley Pond Park, which is the end of the Ice Age in Queens. It's really interesting.
I've been there.
Very interesting. And he also,
the Ice Age hasn't ended in Queens, by the way.
Maybe that's a separate point. And he also taught us that rich or poor, it's good to have money. I believe that Jeanine Pirro, if she does run for Attorney General, will be well funded, and a well-placed couple of $1 million on TV can do a lot to kind of build you up to the point of being that credible alternative to either Cuomo or Green. And I also believe that there's a reason that for all the years that you had Cuomo in office, we had a Republican as comptroller. Now we have, that I think voters don't like to give one party total control of everything. We don't like it with the Republicans in Washington. We certainly don't like it. There's the case in the Supreme Court. There's going to hear the case about Texas redistricting.
Right.
That they, as soon as the Republicans took over, they kind of said, we don't care about the rules. We'll just do whatever we want. I think voters are suspicious of one-party rule. And I don't think you're going to beat Alan Hevesy. I think that the Democrats are odds-on to win the governorship.
Well, we'll talk about that.
And so I think that there's a degree to which voters may want somebody to keep them honest up there.
And also, she's different. She's a woman, number one. But Cuomo's the candidate. Come on, talking about hardball. They're going to throw high, hard ones. She's got to be able to take it.
Well, so does he. I mean,
That's
you know,
true.
so I mean,
That's
he's
true.
going to have high hard ones thrown right back at him.
Okay.
And you know, these are, you know, Mark Green is not exactly a shrinking flower.
No,
when it comes to
absolutely
sharp
not.
elbows politically.
Absolutely.
They
and,
all are.
and in fact, there are a lot of people with good resumes. This is a good race.
It is a very good.
And you've got Richard Brodsky there, who's a substantial guy. I mean, you've got
And you've got the
substantial
woman,
candidates.
is it O'Donnell, the woman from Buffalo, who apparently is supposed to be the most
Right.
experienced as a law enforcement officer.
You've got a nice field on the Democratic side. The question is, you know, what does it look on the Republican side? Let's go to Spitzer. Is Spitzer a lock for the Democratic nomination? Does Suozzi take a shot at him?
Sure, I think so. I mean, I
Because
think
he's
Suozzi
blocked.
is running.
Because he can't negotiate because he's
Well,
got
he
Hevesy on once. What does he do?
What does
Suozzi
Suozzi do? Suozzi runs. I mean, so, you know, it's a you know, as far as I know, it's a free run. He doesn't have to give up. I don't believe he has.
No,
to,
he doesn't.
He doesn't
He
have
just
to give
got
up.
reelected.
Right. So he doesn't have to give up the national, you know, his job to run. And he's establishing a name for himself. He's, you know, he immediately took on the Albany culture
With the Fix It Albany.
with the Fix It Albany, and they knocked out that guy Siddickman on Long
Right.
Island and elected, I think Levine was his name. So he's got
It
a
was
little
an
bit
upstate
of
race.
He's,
Two
so he,
upstate races.
and you had the guy, you had the district attorney, and an insurgent district attorney in Albany County
Right,
was elected.
right.
So you've got, and you know, running against Albany is a powerful argument right now. You know, I mean, it's hard to. I don't see how you paint Spitzer as kind of the heart of the Albany
How
culture.
do you out-reform the
But-
reformer? But, I mean,
but,
Suozzi's got
you
a
know-
case for political reform.
Oh, I think he has a case for political reform, and
Okay,
he's.
now, Spitzer and Suozzi?
Wait a minute. Having said that, I would not put a dime against Elliot Spitzer, not only winning the nomination but becoming governor.
Okay, but that's the point.
Right.
But is there enough damage done in a Democratic primary that the Republicans have a shot, depending on who that candidate is?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure where you attack Spitzer. I mean,
Right.
on what basis? You know, I don't think Suozzi is going to take the side of all the Wall Street people that Spitzer's been investigating.
that's
so, I
true.
mean, I would think it might be a fairly, you know, if there's a race, it could be a fairly high-minded race. It could be on
Who's the better,
Albany.
bigger reformer?
Absolutely. I mean, you
Okay,
know.
what would this reform agenda be?
Well, I think the reform agenda, if you read the papers, is to try, you know, it's essentially a legislative reform agenda. It really is less of an executive reform agenda than it is the 3 men in a room, which now this year became 5 men in a room, all men, by the way, no women, because you had the minority leaders in each chamber.
Or there were
sitting in
still 4 men in the room because the governor was out in Iowa, you know, running
well,
his
but I mean,
presidential
but
campaign.
so essentially you have, you know, I actually.
And how much of that was show? And
I mean, the
versus
real
reality?
action in reforming Albany is in the legislative chambers and loosening up those rules. And you know, on the assembly side, I think you've seen a lot of reform happening because you had a revolt against the speaker. You had the action on the death penalty, the refusal to reinstate the death penalty was because backbenchers in the assembly said we never got to vote on it in 1995. Let's have a hearing. It was a model of how legislators ought to work. Now in the Senate, because you have such a narrow margin for the Republicans, and that's the real danger that they lose the Senate, is you haven't got the flexibility to be fair if you're a leader. I mean, you've got, you know, you have to crack the whip because your margin is so thin. So that's, you know, because I believe a lot of what Bruno is doing, and I think Bruno has showed himself to be, talk about sharp elbows, a very effective backroom
former
talk.
boxer. I mean, you
And,
know, the
so-
metaphor
right?
fits with Joe.
And I don't know if he elbowed people in the boxing ring, but you know that's the real, you know.
So we're talking about
One of the
Joe
reasons-
Bruno protecting his conference, and he sees Jeanine Pirro, for example, and maybe Bill Weld as endangering that conference. I mean,
And he sees George Pataki as irrelevant to that effort.
well, that got to the
Right,
the
right,
earlier question:
right.
is George Pataki simply a lame duck, or is he a dead duck? I mean, he's still the governor, so he controls the parks. He's still an executive budget, so he's not truly dead, but he seems comatose. No.
Well, I don't know that for the last 4 years people have been focusing a great deal on him. He's never been kind of a schmoozing presence up there. He was, you know, don't forget he was a backbencher when he got
Right,
elected. So I
right.
mean, he was picked out of the hat by Al D'Amato and Arthur Finkelstein, who needed a pro-choice suburban Catholic, you know, in order to dragon slay Mario
Right.
Cuomo. So it wasn't as if he had this long career building up to, he was kind of a fluke in 1994. Just the same as we're talking about Hillary Clinton is going to be for or against Hillary Clinton. George Pataki wasn't elected. People threw Mario Cuomo out.
Yeah,
So-
but they were tired of Mario Cuomo
That's right.
after 12 years. I don't think they're tired of Hillary Clinton.
Well, I don't
after
think they're
6
tired of Hillary Clinton
at
either.
all. I mean, just look at the numbers.
Oh, I think she's going to win overwhelmingly no matter who they put up
Right.
against.
Let's-
And deservedly so. She's going to win overwhelmingly.
Okay. Let's go back to Silva. Tuesday's Post headline: Top Dem speaker is strife of the party. Has Shelley's time passed? Is there the possibility of this coup that Bragman tried to orchestrate in the 90s and it failed?
No.
Is Shelley in danger here?
No. And I must tell you, as a New Yorker who cares about the city, I think that Shelley Silver, as the kind of top Democrat in the state political circles, setting aside the Attorney General,
Right.
I think he served the city quite well. And I mean, you
Talk
look
to
at
me about commuter
You
tax.
look at even
Come
well,
on,
commuter
come on.
tax is a blot. I believe is a blot on his record, and will always be a blot on his record. But look at what happened, for instance, with the West Side Stadium. That it was Shelley getting excoriated, and he's got a very thick hide. He's willing to take it for what he believes is right. And I think that Shelley has been kind of having his finger in the dike, stopping some of the worst ideas of the Republicans from, breaking through that dam and flooding New York City, as I beat a metaphor to death, if you'll pardon me.
That's okay.
So I think that there's a point in politics. This goes with my argument of people liking divided government to some degree, because I think you want them to, an efficient government can be pretty dangerous to your.
Well,
to
I
your
mean, the
fiscal
founding
and
fathers
personal
believed
health.
efficient government was the worst form
That's
of
right.
government because it could
That's right.
tyrannize.
That's-
That's why the Constitution is so
So
anti-majoritarian.
I'm actually sympathetic to the idea of I'm sympathetic to the idea of divided government. I think what's going on in Washington, as a New Yorker, as a Democrat, but more so as a New Yorker, and frankly, I think as a rational citizen, I think what's going on down there with Republicans in control of everything is horrendous for the future of this country and for my kids. Where you go from a $1 trillion, surplus to $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see, and my kids are going to be paying for that.
But you could have Elliot Spitzer, Alan Hevesy, and
Democrat to be named later.
Democratic to be named later as Attorney General, and you may have control of the state Senate. I don't think the Dems do it yet because
I think it's pretty close this year.
It's close, but
because, for instance, if Pirro doesn't run for Attorney General, there's this guy Balboni who's from upstate, who is from a swing district. He's a Republican. A lot of the reason Bruno wants Pirro to move over into that race is so that Balboni doesn't run, because Bruno wants to hold on to his chamber. Bruno may figure, I don't know, I'm not in his inner circles, that we're losing the governorship, we're losing all this other stuff. We got to hold on to this chamber.
I believe that that's absolutely the case, and we know that he only has control of that chamber, the Republicans, because of the way redistricting is done in the
Well,
state,
look at it.
where the Assembly redistricts itself and the Senate redistricts itself. If you look at the numbers, 2011 redistricting, the Republicans are dead because of the voting, as you know, the registration advantage of Democrats is increasingly exceeding
But
Republicans.
also remember, we have 19 million people in this state. The same 19 million people can be cut up to give the Democrats a 60-vote majority in the Assembly and the Republicans a 6-vote majority in the state Senate. Now tell me that what's going on in Texas, for instance, with this fight over redistricting, that there's not something very real. I mean, if that's not the best example of how partisan a process redistricting is.
Well, particularly in the state of New York, at least in New Jersey, we have a nonpartisan districting commission. Even in the city, it's not quite nonpartisan because there are always political influences. But it's a hell of a lot cleaner than the state. The state's ridiculous.
It shouldn't be nonpartisan. I mean, it should certainly not be apolitical. I don't even know that I don't even know that it should be nonpartisan. I know, like, one of the things I most disagreed with the mayor on was trying to do away with partisan elections.
I agree. I mean, I was an advocate against it, but the point is that the redistricting in Texas and the gerrymandering that's going on in New York is fundamentally anti-democratic with a small d.
Right.
And in New York State, anti-democratic in Texas with a big D, but certainly with a small d. Okay, I mean, we've got too much to talk about to stop at any one of these things. Let's talk about some issues. Death penalty. I mean, we've had 2 cop shootings. Tukey Williams gets executed on Tuesday. Is it possible that the death penalty reemerges here? Something's going on here.
You know, put our cards on the table. As you know, I work with New Yorkers Against the Death Penalty.
Right.
I'm quite opinionated on this issue. I'm also a New Yorker, and we had a meeting up in kind of a legislative reception last spring, I guess it was, up in Albany, and Bishop Hubbard, who's the Bishop of Albany, talked about how these terrible cases are going to come. And I think that the killings of these two police officers are just horrendous cases. These were princes of the city. These are the best we have.
Right.
And I was talking to Peter Rivera, who is an assemblyman from the Bronx, who's an ex-cop, an ex-DEA agent, was a prosecuting attorney on homicide cases, was a defense attorney in the Central Park jogger case, which was a wrongful conviction case. You know,
and what does he say?
He's against the death penalty because the death penalty is still not the answer.
Yeah, what's the question?
Well, the question is, do you act out of vengeance to punish the people who do this, or do you try to find some level of justice? And if you could come up with a system that guaranteed you that the 120 people who were on death row and later exonerated, I don't mean they got out on technicalities, they were later found to be innocent.
Right.
If you could see that the two people right now who were executed, one in Missouri and one in Texas, the cases are under investigation because they believe those people were innocent.
Right.
At least the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the Houston Post, or Houston Chronicle, whichever one
Well,
survived
and the
down there.
whole situation in Illinois when it was just stopped.
And when you look at, on a more compassionate basis, the kind of, life without, one of the people who testified was a former warden at Sing Sing, a guy named Steve Dalsheim, who said these people who think that life without parole is a day at the beach don't know what it's like to live in prison, where people have to wake up every day in a small room and think about why they are where they are. It's a time when you have to resist the call for vengeance and realize that in the long run, when you study the death penalty, it's unfair, it's racially biased, both in terms of the defendant and more often in terms of the victim. It is incredibly costly. It cost us over $200 million in the last 10 years, and it has no deterrence value whatsoever.
Is it going to be in the legislature in 2006?
Well, I don't know. I think the reaction to this, the Daily News is probably the best example, a strongly pro-death penalty paper. They want a lot tougher penalties on crimes against police officers.
Sure. In fact, they're leading the charge here.
And they mention the death penalty, but you don't see them focusing on the death penalty.
Not yet. It hasn't appeared on the editorial page.
Because polls have shown, both nationally in New York State and especially now among Catholics, because there's a new campaign by the Catholic Church against the death penalty.
And you're telling me that the Daily News reads the polls?
That I think that the Daily News does read the polls. I think everybody reads the polls. You read them, I read them. That doesn't mean that's how you make up your opinion. But I think that people are asked, do you support the death penalty? You still will find a lot of people saying yes. If you ask people,
yes,
do you prefer the death penalty or life without parole as a maximum crime? It's a maximum sentence. It flips dramatically, almost 2 to 1 in this state. It was like 59-29, which is just over 2 to 1 in favor of life without parole.
So you don't think it'll fly politically?
Well, I don't think it'll fly politically. You had a guy in Virginia just elected governor, a guy who was anti-death penalties. He's anti-abortion, anti-death penalties, He's a Catholic candidate, consistent ethic of life, and was beaten over the head by the Republicans, saying he's against the death penalty. He's soft on crime. They ran ads against him, and the Democrat was elected. So I think that as a political tool, playing the death card,
may have diminishing utility.
I think it has tremendously diminishing utility, and I think that's a sign of maturity on the part of the people.
Let's go to.
It's a very tough thing to discuss.
Oh, absolutely,
especially in the face of these horrendous murders.
Of course, and particularly since they deal with fundamental value issues, which are the most difficult to negotiate, compromise. You don't. Let's talk about CFE, Campaign for Fiscal Equity. Is the city ever going to get the money from the state? When?
I don't know.
They owe us. Come on.
My kids are now in 4th grade and 2nd grade.
They're going to be out of high school?
Probably out of graduate school. This is just, this is, the formulas are controlled by the legislature, and they've managed to either ignore or sidestep the court for all these years. It's got to come sometime. There's a court order, and the Court of Appeals has upheld it. It's got to come sometime.
Eliot Spitzer, or Democrat, wins the governorship. Do we drop the case?
Oh, you never dropped the case.
Okay.
How can
It
you,
just
it's
goes.
like the
I
gay
mean, he's
marriage.
arguing the case now.
It's like
as Attorney General.
He's arguing against the case.
Right.
I'm sure, but but that's his. I mean, he's arguing gay marriage. Against the gay marriage issue. That you have an obligation as a lawyer. You can't always pick your clients.
Right. No, I
so
understand.
that doesn't mean that's who the man is.
Let's talk about one of my favorite institutions, and that's the MTA.
Aren't we going to beat up the media? Oh no, I'm sorry.
We could.
Okay,
You want to take a little sidestep and beat up the media?
No,
I mean, beating up the
MTA is fine.
Beat up the MTA. We're looking at a strike.
Maybe.
Isn't this choreographed? Haven't we seen this before?
It's choreographed, except that sometimes somebody makes the wrong step and steps on somebody's toes, and somebody piles over, and we're all going to be walking to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the scene in The Maltese Falcon where Bogart says to the fat man, sometimes, people don't act as rationally as they ought to react. So you've got this problem.
I mean, I think what's fascinating here is
is it rational for the union to go out? They could go to jail. They're 2-to-1 fines, union checkoffs. I mean, is it worth it institutionally, and is it worth it for the individual members?
That's a judgment that only the union can make. And you look, it was Roger Toussaint, who I think is the face of the future of activist labor. I mean, he's a firebrand. He's an immigrant. He's from Trinidad. He was a track worker. He's the real deal. And if you noticed in his meeting, I think it was last Saturday when they took the strike authorization vote to authorize the executive board to call the strike, he invoked the name of Mike Quill.
Right.
For those of us of a certain age, Mike Quill was the epitome of the immigrant Irish.
1966, January 1st, my first year at college, I had 9 guys living in my room because Mayor Lindsley had blown it with Mike Quill, and Mike Quill stuck it to him. But in 1980, Ed Koch, with his Brooklyn Bridge rah-rah, sort of turned the tide and moved it against. And now, what happens here?
I can't judge what's a good contract or what's not a good contract. I think that labor unions in general have been behind the 8 ball here. I think that the Taylor law is, I think it's kind of an unfair anti-labor law, but it is the law. And I think that they ought to believe that the state will seek the penalties that law allows. I mean, they shouldn't be under the misimpression that they won't do it. And this is also a union and MTA, which is kind of imperious and unresponsive, and has $1 billion deficit, has $1 billion surplus that it seems to want to, stick in its back pocket and not tell anybody that it exists. There's a lot of brinksmanship that have always been.
Okay. Are we riding the subways, yes or no, on Saturday?
I believe we are.
Okay.
At least I hope we are, because I have places to go.
Me too. My pleasure. Thanks, Bob.